The dorm room was a freezer at 2 a.m. The bitter East Coast winter was gnawing through the thin window panes, and our ancient radiator had given up its ghost hours ago. The darkness was absolute save for the pale moonlight slicing through the blinds, casting long cage-like shadows across the floorboards. I lay curled on my side, shivering under a pathetic pile of blankets, my oversized hoodie doing nothing to stop the chill. Across the cramped room, Jax was a heavy silhouette on his bed. He was the university's star basketball captain, 6'3", of pure muscle and arrogant ease. Even in his sleep, he took up too much space. I hugged my knees to my chest, trying to ignore the biting cold, but more importantly, trying to keep my body perfectly neutral. I had two secrets, both equally humiliating. First, my body was a walking, breathing mood ring. Whenever my emotions spiked, my skin released a physical scent. Peach when I was happy, a sharp, bitter lemon when I was terrified, and vanilla thick, heavy, intoxicating vanilla when I was aroused or completely flustered. Second, if I touched someone while they were sleeping, I slipped straight into their dreams, a glorified dream thief. Usually keeping to myself was easy. I was Caleb, the quiet sophomore who blended into the background, but tonight the cold was unbearable. My teeth chattered so hard it hurt. Desperate, I threw off my blankets and tiptoed across the icy hardwood floor, aiming for the closet to grab my winter coat. I didn't mean to get so close to his bed. As I sneaked past, my numb foot caught the edge of his discarded duffel bag. I stumbled forward, my arms flailing in the dark. I didn't hit the floor. Instead, my bare hand slammed flat against something solid, warm, and distinctly alive. Jax's bare chest. Before I could even gasp, the freezing dorm room vanished. The physical world dissolved violently, replaced by a sweltering, hazy red light. The air in my lungs turned instantly thick-smelling of sweat mint and raw desire. I wasn't in the dorm anymore. I was standing in the shadowy corner of a locker room. I was in Jax's dream. I tried to pull back to sever the connection, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Then I heard a rhythmic, agonizing groan of a metal bench straining under heavy weight. The sound echoed loudly in the steamy room, accompanied by the wet, heavy sound of harsh breathing. I turned my head, my heart hammering against my ribs, and my breath physically stopped in my throat. Jax was there, but he wasn't the cold, untouchable jock I knew. He was feral. His broad back was slick with sweat muscles flexing and shifting violently as he pinned someone down against the hard metal bench. His hands were gripping the person's hips tight enough to leave bruises, his face buried in their neck, claiming them with a desperate, starving intensity. The person underneath him let out a broken, high-pitched moan, a sound of absolute surrender. The person turned their head, their face catching the dim light. Brown, messy curls, wide, tear-filled eyes, a too large hoodie shoved up to the chest. Me. He was dreaming about me. The shock hit me like a physical punch to the gut. The sheer aggression in his movements, the possessive way his hands mapped the dream version of my body, it was overwhelming. It wasn't just a fantasy, it was an obsession. The squeaking sound of the bench grew deafening. Dream Jax suddenly stopped. He lifted his head, his dark, predatory eyes piercing straight through the haze, looking directly at the real me standing in the corner. He smirked. I violently ripped my hand away. Reality crashed back in. I hit the hardwood floor of the dorm room, landing hard on my hands and knees. The biting cold returned, but I was burning from the inside out. My chest heaved, a pathetic, choked gasp tearing from my throat in the dead silence of the room. My mind was spinning. He wants me. He wants to do that to me. Panic flared, but beneath the panic, a terrifying liquid heat pooled in my stomach. The arousal was undeniable. I squeezed my eyes shut mentally, begging my body to calm down, to freeze, to do anything else. But it was too late. The smell of rich, warm vanilla burst from my skin. It flooded the tiny dorm room in seconds, heavy and sweet, swallowing the cold air completely. It was a dead giveaway. A massive, glowing neon sign broadcasting exactly how turned on I was. Please be asleep, I prayed frantically, scrambling backward until my back hit the cold metal of my own bed frame. Please. The room was dead silent. Then the rustle of sheets. My heart flatlined. The sound of bare feet stepping onto the wooden floor echoed in the quiet room. Slow. Deliberate. The footsteps crossed the short distance between our beds. I pressed myself against the wall, trembling too terrified to look up in the dark. A shadow fell over me. The heat radiating off his large body was a stark contrast to the freezing room. He didn't turn on the light. He just leaned down, caging me in by planting a massive hand on the wall right beside my head. I stopped breathing. The scent of vanilla was so thick I could taste it. Jax leaned in closer, his face mere inches from mine. I could feel the ghost of his breath against my trembling lips. He inhaled deeply, a slow, deliberate intake of air that sent a violent shiver down my spine. This scent. His voice was a low, gravelly whisper, a sound straight out of the dream I had just escaped. "It's so sweet tonight, Caleb." I clamped my mouth shut wide-eyed. He tilted his head, his lips grazing the shell of my ear. "Tell me, what exactly did you just see in my dream?" I didn't answer him last night. When Jax had leaned in, his voice dark and dripping with that terrible knowing heat, my brain had simply short-circuited. I had squeezed my eyes shut, faking a sudden deep sleep, with all the pathetic desperation of a prey animal playing dead. Somehow he had let me go, retreating to his bed, with a soft, mocking chuckle that had vibrated straight down to my bones. The next morning, the harsh sunlight slicing through the blinds felt like an interrogation lamp. I bolted out of bed the second my alarm blared. I didn't look across the room. I shoved my arms into my oversized gray hoodie, zipped it all the way up to my chin, and scrambled for my backpack. My skin was practically humming with anxiety, my body forcibly pushing out a sharp, acidic scent. Bitter lemon. It was my natural defense mechanism, the smell of absolute unadulterated panic. I breathed it in, letting the tartness burn my nose. Good. I thought my hands shaking as I tied my sneakers. Lemon means fear. Lemon means stay away. Usually Jax ignored my existence before noon. He was the king of the campus, moving through his mornings with an arrogant, untouchable grace, leaving me to my invisible life. But today the rules had changed. The hunt had begun. I was power walking down the crowded hallway of the science building, my head down, desperate to blend in. Suddenly, a massive wall of a chest stepped directly into my path. My textbook slipped from my hands, hitting the linoleum floor with a loud, echoing slap. I stumbled back, my apologies dying in my throat as I looked up. Jax. He was wearing his varsity jacket, towering over me. The hallway chatter around us seemed to instantly mute. He didn't apologize. Instead, he slowly crouched down, his large hand wrapping around my textbook. When he stood back up, he didn't just hand it to me. He stepped directly into my personal space. "Careful, Caleb," he murmured, his voice a low rumble just for me. He pressed the book against my chest, his knuckles deliberately dragging against my collarbone through the thick fabric of my hoodie. "You seem jumpy today." My breath hitched. The overwhelming scent of his icy mint body wash crashed into my sharp lemon defense, battling it, swallowing it whole. I snatched the book and practically ran to class, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. He didn't stop there. The psychological warfare continued all afternoon. I tried to hide in the campus library, seeking refuge in the darkest, most isolated corner on the third floor. The silence was heavy, broken only by the soft, hushing sound of turning pages and distant footsteps. I was reaching for a reference book on the top shelf, my fingers just brushing the spine when a shadow swallowed mine. A deeply tanned arm reached right over my head. The fabric of a black athletic shirt brushed against my ear. "Need a hand," I gasped, spinning around. Jax was caging me against the dusty wooden bookshelf. He was so close I could count his dark eyelashes. He pulled the heavy book down and held it out. In his other hand, he held an iced coffee. "You look stressed," Jax whispered, his dark eyes tracking a bead of sweat rolling down my temple. He lifted the plastic cup of the ice cubes, rattling loudly in the quiet aisle. "Drink. You need to cool down." He pushed the straw against my bottom lip. It was an insanely intimate gesture. I should have pushed him away. I should have yelled, but under his intense predatory gaze, my body betrayed me. I opened my mouth slightly, taking a shaky sip. His eyes darkened, tracking the movement of my throat as I swallowed. "No, stop." I felt it before I smelled it. A treacherous liquid heat pooling in my stomach, battling the anxiety. The sharp scent of lemon wafting from my skin began to mutate. The edges of the sour citrus softened slowly, giving way to something rich, heavy, and intoxicating. Vanilla. A single drop of vanilla leaking out and mixing with the lemon. Jax's nostrils flared. He caught the scent. A slow, wicked smirk spread across his lips, triumphant and devastating. I shoved past his shoulder, abandoning the book, and practically sprinted down the stairs. I thought I could outrun him. I thought I could wash it all away. By 5 p.m., I sought sanctuary in the old gym's locker room, hoping a cold shower would shock my system back into neutrality. The room was empty, the air thick with dampness and the smell of chlorine. I was standing by my open locker, yanking my hoodie over my head, when the heavy door swung open. The sound of wet rubber soles squeaked slowly and deliberately on the tile floor. I froze my hoodie bunched around my neck, exposing my pale chest and the rapidly beating pulse at my collarbone. Jax walked down the aisle. He had just finished practice. His hair was damp, sticking to his forehead, and his athletic shirt clung to his abs like a second skin. He didn't say a word. He just walked straight toward me, his eyes locked onto mine like a sniper tracking a target. Panic seized me, but my legs wouldn't move. I backed up until my bare shoulders hit the cold metal of the lockers. A loud, violent sound of metal echoed in the steamy room as Jax slammed his hand flat against the locker right beside my head. He boxed me in completely. The sheer size of him was suffocating. The heat radiating off his body was like an open furnace. I was trembling violently. The lemon scent poured out of me a desperate cry for help, but the vanilla was fighting it sweet and undeniable. Jax didn't look at my face. He leaned down his face, burying into the curve of my neck. I felt the ghost of his lips grazing my pulse point, sending a violent electric shock straight down my spine. He inhaled deeply, a long, rough sound that echoed loudly in the quiet locker room. He pulled back just an inch, his lips brushing my skin as he finally spoke. His voice was a gravelly, dangerous whisper. Lemon and vanilla. Jax tilted his head, his dark eyes piercing through my soul, stripping away every lie I had ever told. Tell me the truth, Caleb. Are you terrified of me, or are you craving me? I decided to fight a biological war with chemicals. During my lunch break, I practically sprinted to the campus convenience store and bought 3 cans of the strongest, cheapest men's body spray I could find. Arctic Force, the label promised. It smelled like industrial cleaner and aggressive pine needles. I didn't care. I stood in the middle of our dorm room and coated myself in a thick, choking cloud of it. The aerosol hiss filled the quiet room. I coughed, my eyes watering as the harsh artificial scent burned my lungs. But it worked. The sharp, terrified lemon scent radiating from my pores was completely buried under a mountain of fake pine. I felt secure for the first time in 48 hours. A heavily armored fortress of bad cologne. My victory lasted exactly 20 minutes. The dorm door swung open. Jax walked in, dumping his heavy basketball duffel on the floor with a loud thud. He took one step into the room and instantly stopped. His broad shoulders stiffened. I sat at my desk, gripping my pen, trying to look absorbed in my textbook. Jax inhaled once, a sharp, testing sniff. Then his face twisted in absolute disgust. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, snatched the aluminum can of Arctic Force right off my desk, and marched to the trash bin. The heavy can hit the bottom of the plastic bin with a loud clunk. Hey, I protested, spinning around in my chair. I paid for that. Jax turned to face me. He looked genuinely furious, a dark storm brewing in his eyes. He leaned down, placing both hands on the armrests of my chair, effectively trapping me. Wash it off, he ordered, his voice dangerously low, grating against the silence of the room. No, I challenged, though my voice shook. It's my body. I can wear whatever I want. And frankly, you need to back off. Jax's jaw clenched. He leaned in so close, his nose brushed my jawline completely, ignoring the toxic cloud of cheap cologne. I held my breath, waiting for him to pull away in disgust. He didn't. He just inhaled deeply, searching past the chemicals, hunting for the truth hidden underneath. It gives me a headache, he lied smoothly, his hot breath fanning against my neck. And it's a pathetic hiding spot, Caleb. Don't cover it up. I want the real you. Wash it off, or I'll drag you to the showers and scrub it off myself. He held my gaze for one long, terrifying second before pushing off the chair and grabbing his gym bag again. I'm going to the weight room. Have that poison off by the time I get back. The door clicked shut behind him. I slumped in my chair, exhaling a shaky breath. 2 hours later, the room was empty and quiet again. I had taken a shower, scrubbing my skin until it was pink, defeated by his threat. I was tidying up the room, picking up stray socks and gathering trash. I walked over to Jax's side of the room to grab an empty protein shake bottle from his nightstand. As I reached over his perfectly made bed, my hip bumped the edge of his mattress. His heavy memory foam pillow slipped off the edge and hit the floor with a soft thwack. Crap, I muttered, bending down to pick it up. But as I reached for the pillow, my hand froze mid-air. There, resting exactly where Jax's head laid every single night, was a crumpled piece of dark gray fabric. My heart did a strange, violent flip in my chest. Slowly, with trembling fingers, I reached out and picked it up. It was a t-shirt. My t-shirt. The vintage band tee I thought I had lost in the laundry room over a month ago. My breath hitched. Why would Jax have my missing shirt under his pillow? I brought the soft, worn cotton to my face. The scent hit me like a physical blow. It smelled intensely of Jax, that icy, masculine mint body wash, and the heavy musk of his sweat. But underneath his scent, woven deep into the fabric, was a smell I knew all too well. Vanilla. Rich, heavy, concentrated vanilla. My knees went weak, and I sank onto the edge of his bed, clutching the shirt. The pieces of the puzzle aggressively snapped together. He hadn't just smelled my vanilla scent 2 nights ago. He had known about it for a long time. He had stolen my unwashed shirt a month ago. He had been sleeping with it, breathing it in, hugging it in the dark while I slept just a few feet away, completely oblivious. The sheer magnitude of his obsession was suffocating. It was insane. It was crossing every normal boundary of a roommate relationship. I should have been terrified. I was terrified. But as I sat there, gripping the fabric that held both of our scents perfectly mixed together, the sharp lemon of my panic began to melt. A treacherous liquid heat pooled in my stomach. To be wanted that much with that kind of dark, consuming intensity, it was terrifying, but it was also incredibly intoxicating. I didn't put the shirt back. I shoved it deep into the bottom of my own drawer. That night, the bitter cold returned to the room. I lay on my side, staring into the darkness, hyper-aware of the steady rhythm of Jax's breathing across the room. Around 3 a.m., the floorboards creaked. He was crossing the room again, his heavy footsteps thumping against the floorboards. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I didn't squeeze my eyes shut this time. I watched his large silhouette stop beside my bed. Without a word, he lifted my heavy blanket and slid onto the narrow mattress right behind me. The bed groaned under his massive weight. The heat radiating off his body immediately chased the winter chill away. I froze, my back pressed against his solid chest. Slowly, heavily, a large, muscular arm draped over my waist. He pulled me flush against him, burying his face in the crook of my neck. He took a long, deep breath, inhaling the fresh, unfiltered vanilla that was already pouring out of my skin in waves. "Found your shirt, huh?" Jax whispered, his voice a dark, sleepy rumble against my skin. I trembled, my heart beating so fast I thought it might burst. I should have shoved him off. I should have yelled. But instead, I let out a shaky breath, closed my eyes, and let my fingers lightly cover his thick wrist resting on my stomach. I didn't push him away. The bass from the massive speakers wasn't just loud, it was a physical force vibrating straight through the sticky floorboards of the Sigma Chi frat house and rattling my ribs. The air was a suffocating cocktail of cheap keg beer, stale sweat, and cloying, fruity vape smoke. Strobe lights sliced through the dark room in jagged, dizzying flashes of neon blue and red. I hated frat parties. I hated the crowds, the noise, and the constant threat of losing control over my own body. But Jerry had dragged me out, promising me a normal college experience, completely oblivious to the fact that I was the furthest thing from normal. I stood backed into the darkest corner of the kitchen, clutching a crushed red Solo cup filled with lukewarm soda like a shield. My eyes constantly scanned the sea of grinding bodies, looking for one specific towering silhouette. Jax hadn't come with us. He had a team dinner. I shouldn't have been looking for him. I shouldn't have wanted him there. But without his heavy anchoring presence, my anxiety was already simmering. A faint tart citrus smell was beginning to prickle at my collar. "Hey there, quiet guy." The voice slurred heavily in my ear, pulling me violently from my thoughts. I jumped, spilling my soda down my knuckles. A senior, a massive blocky linebacker named Brody, was suddenly crowding my space. His eyes were glazed with alcohol, and he smelled like tequila and bad decisions. Before I could step away, he planted a heavy hand on the wall right beside my head, effectively boxing me in. "Jerry told me you were shy." Brody grinned, his breath sour. "I like shy. Makes it more fun." "I have to go," I muttered, my heart kicking into a frantic, terrified rhythm. I tried to duck under his arm, but he moved fast, his other hand coming down to grip my hip tightly. His thick fingers dug into my waist through my hoodie. Panic didn't just flare, it exploded. My body recognized the threat before my brain could even formulate a scream. My internal defense mechanism detonated. A violently sharp, acidic scent burst from my pores. It wasn't just the smell of lemon anymore. It was concentrated chemical-grade citrus acid. It was the scent of absolute blinding terror. The acrid cloud violently pushed outward, thick and suffocating. Brody instantly froze, his face contorted. He gasped for air, but instead of oxygen, he inhaled a lungful of my toxic panic. What the hell is that?" Brody wheezed, stumbling backward and coughing. His eyes began to water aggressively. He let out a harsh hacking sound, clapping a hand over his mouth and nose. It didn't stop there. The acidic lemon fog rolled out of the kitchen, stinging the eyes of the students dancing nearby. The chatter died down, replaced by a chorus of coughs and groans. People began backing away, fanning their faces, forming a wide, repulsed circle around me. My eyes are burning. A girl shrieked. "Who sprayed mace?" Someone else yelled over the thumping bass. I stood in the center of the disaster, trembling violently, tears of pure humiliation stinging my own eyes. I was a freak, a literal monster pushing everyone away. I squeezed my eyes shut, wishing the floor would open up and swallow me. Then the heavy wooden front door of the frat house violently slammed open. A loud crash cut straight through the music. I snapped my eyes open. Jack stood in the doorway. He was still wearing his dark dress shirt from the team dinner, the sleeves rolled up exposing his thick forearms. He took one look at the panicked crowd, one deep breath of the air, and his eyes locked onto me like a heat-seeking missile. He didn't cough. His eyes didn't water. The toxic lemon cloud that was choking everyone else didn't even make him blink. To him, my fear wasn't a repellent. It was a beacon. Jax crossed the room with terrifying predatory speed. The crowd parted for him instinctively. Brody, still coughing and rubbing his red eyes, was standing directly in Jax's warpath. Jax didn't even slow down. He grabbed Brody by the collar of his shirt, hauling the heavy senior off his feet, and threw a single devastating punch. The wet, sickening sound of knuckles connecting with bone echoed over the base. Brody crumbled to the sticky floor like a rag doll out cold. No one screamed. The entire house froze. Jax didn't look at the body. He stepped over Brody, his chest heaving, his dark eyes blazing with an unholy possessive fury. His massive hand shot out, wrapping around my wrist in an iron grip. He didn't say a word as he dragged me out of the back door. The freezing winter air hit us like a wall, instantly shocking my system. We were in the dark, empty back lawn of the frat house, hidden behind a line of thick, leafless oak trees. The snow crunched loudly beneath Jax's heavy boots. He spun me around and shoved me hard against the rough bark of a tree. "Jax," I tried to speak. "Who gave him the right?" Jax roared, the sound tearing through the quiet night. He slammed his hands against the tree trunk on either side of my head, caging me completely. He was shaking. The arrogant, untouchable basketball captain was completely unraveled. "Who gave him the right to touch you?" "He just grabbed me. I didn't want it." I cried out, my voice breaking. The adrenaline crashed, leaving me shivering and utterly exhausted. A hot tear slipped down my freezing cheek. Jack stared at my tear. His chest heaved against mine. He leaned down, his nose brushing my jawline, breathing in the sharp, bitter lemon that was still pouring off me in desperate waves. "I know," he whispered, his voice suddenly dropping to a gravelly, agonizing rumble. "I know. You only smell like this when you're terrified." He lifted a trembling hand, his rough thumb gently wiping the tear from my cheek. The contrast between his violent rage and this sudden bruising tenderness completely shattered my defenses. I looked up into his dark eyes, seeing the absolute obsession, the raw, undeniable need burning there. He wasn't disgusted by my freakish scent. He had walked through a toxic cloud just to get to me. He had fought for me. My breath hitched. The fear finally broke. I let out a shaky, broken sob and let my head drop against his solid chest, burying my face in the curve of his neck. I grabbed fistfuls of his dress shirt, clinging to him like he was the only solid thing left in the world. Instantly, the sharp acidic lemon died. In its place, a thick, heavy wave of pure concentrated vanilla exploded from my skin. It flooded the freezing night air, rich and incredibly sweet, drowning out the cold completely. It was the scent of total surrender, of deep, consuming desire. Jax let out a harsh, guttural groan at the scent. His arms wrapped around my waist, crushing me flush against his hard body. He buried his face in my hair, inhaling deeply, desperately, breathing in the vanilla like he was a drowning man, and I was his only oxygen. "God, Caleb," he breathed, his voice thick with a dark, triumphant heat. "You're mine." The aftermath of the frat party left a suffocating heavy tension in our dorm room. For 2 days, we existed in a dangerous, unspoken orbit. The memory of my vanilla scent completely flooding the freezing winter air, the feeling of Jax's massive arms crushing me against his chest. It was burned into my skin. I couldn't stop looking at him. I couldn't stop tracking the way his jaw flexed when he studied, or the way his dark eyes would lock onto me across the room, burning with that same possessive, unspoken heat. The terrifying truth was finally clear to me. I didn't want to run anymore. I wasn't just afraid of him, I was completely hopelessly consumed by him. But I needed him to say it first. I needed to know that the untouchable basketball captain actually wanted Caleb, the quiet, awkward sophomore, and not just the physical reaction my body produced. I got my answer on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. My wet sneakers squeaked softly against the linoleum floor of the hallway as I walked back from my biology lab. The dorm was usually empty at this hour, but as I approached our room, I noticed the heavy wooden door was cracked open just an inch. I reached out to push it, but a deep, frustrated voice stopped me dead in my tracks. "You don't understand, Dr. Evans. It's getting worse." It was Jax. He was pacing the length of the room. I froze outside the door, my hand hovering midair, holding my breath. Why was he talking to his hometown therapist? I know I need to control it. Jax growled, his voice thick with a raw, agonizing frustration I had never heard from him before. But I can't. It's the scent. I'm completely obsessed with it. It's making me lose my mind. It's literally making me hallucinate these insane, vivid dreams. He kicked the leg of his desk with a heavy thump. I can't think straight. Every time I smell it, I just want to lock him in this room and never let him out. It's not normal, Doc. I'm addicted to it, like a literal drug. If I don't get away from it, I'm going to end up hurting him. The words hit me like a physical blow to the stomach. It's the scent. I'm addicted to it. My vision blurred. The world violently tilted on its axis. He didn't love me. He wasn't looking at me with affection or care. I was just a walking, breathing biological anomaly, a living drug dispenser. The dreams, the intense stares, the possessive rage at the frat house. None of it was about Caleb. It was an involuntary chemical addiction to the vanilla my body produced. He was terrified of himself, terrified of the monster my scent turned him into. I stumbled backward, my back hitting the cold concrete wall of the hallway. Panic tried to flare. My body instinctively prepared to release a sharp, bitter wave of lemon to defend itself. But something else happened. The profound, shattering heartbreak completely overrode the fear. A heavy, freezing numbness spread from my chest, traveling rapidly through my veins, shutting down every nerve ending. The lemon died before it could even surface. The vanilla evaporated. My body went completely terrifyingly dormant. I waited in the hallway for 10 agonizing minutes until I heard Jax grab his gym bag and leave his heavy footsteps fading down the opposite stairwell. Only then did I push the door open. The room was perfectly still, smelling faintly of his icy mint body wash. I didn't cry. I felt completely hollowed out. I pulled my large canvas suitcase from under my bed and threw it onto the mattress. The harsh sound of the zipper tore through the silence. I began aggressively throwing my clothes into the bag. Hoodies, jeans, socks. I didn't fold them. I just needed to leave. I needed to get to the housing office before they closed and demand an immediate emergency transfer. I couldn't be his drug anymore. I couldn't let him look at me like a prized possession when I was nothing more than a chemical fix. I was tossing my textbooks into my backpack when the door violently clicked open. I froze a textbook clutched in my hand. Jax stood in the doorway. He had forgotten his water bottle. His dark eyes instantly dropped to the open half-full suitcase on my bed. His broad shoulders stiffened. "What are you doing?" he demanded, his voice dropping into a dangerously low, gravelly register. He stepped into the room, kicking the door shut behind him with a loud slam. "I'm moving out," I said. My voice was completely flat, dead. Jax's jaw clenched. He crossed the room in 2 massive strides, his predatory gaze locked onto me. He stepped directly into my personal space, towering over me, trying to intimidate me into backing down like he always did. He leaned down, his face bearing into the crook of my neck, taking a long, desperate breath to inhale the fear, the arousal, anything. He inhaled once, then twice. His massive body went entirely rigid. He pulled back, his dark eyes wide and suddenly filled with absolute, unadulterated terror. He stared at me like I was a ghost. I smelled like laundry detergent. I smelled like the cheap campus soap. I smelled like regular, boring sweat. But there was no lemon. There was no peach. And there was absolutely no vanilla. For the first time since I had met him, my body was completely, entirely silent. I was a void. Caleb Jax whispered, his voice cracking, his hands instinctively reaching out to grip my shoulders. He was shaking. The untouchable, arrogant king of the campus was trembling violently under his varsity jacket. "Where is it? Why can't I smell you?" "You're cured," I said softly, stepping back and pulling out of his grip. I zipped my backpack up. "You don't have to be addicted anymore, Jax." "I'm leaving." "No," Jax gasped, the sound tearing from his throat like a wounded animal. He lunged forward, planting himself firmly between me and the door, his massive frame blocking my only exit completely. His eyes were wild, frantic. "No. No, Caleb, you're not leaving. You are not leaving this room." "Move, Jax," I said, my voice eerily calm. The hollow numbness in my chest made me feel like I was floating outside of my own body. "No." Jax's massive chest heaved. His hands were braced on either side of the door frame, physically trapping me in the room. The confident, untouchable basketball captain was gone. In his place was a frantic, terrified boy. His dark eyes darted across my face, searching desperately for any trace of the fear or desire he was so used to seeing. "Caleb, please, talk to me. Why did your scent just stop? Why do you smell like nothing?" "Because the drug wore off," I replied flatly. "I heard you on the phone with Dr. Evans. I know the truth. I'm just a biological trigger for you, a walking hallucination. You said it yourself, you're addicted to the vanilla. Well, congratulations. The vanilla is gone. You're free." I stepped forward, gripping the straps of my backpack, intending to push past him. But Jax didn't just stand there. He let out a raw, agonizing sound, something between a growl and a sob. He lunged away from the door, completely ignoring me, and grabbed my half-packed suitcase from the bed. He violently hurled it across the room with a loud crash. It slammed against the brick wall, spilling my hoodies and jeans all over the floor in a messy, chaotic heap. "Don't you ever say that," Jax roared, his voice shaking the window panes. He spun back to me, closing the distance between us in a millisecond. His large hands flew up, grabbing the sides of my face. His thumbs dug into my jawline, completely disregarding personal space. His palms were actually sweating. He was trembling so hard it vibrated straight through my bones. "Drug. You think this is about the fucking scent?" Jax's voice cracked. His dark eyes were glossy, swimming with an unshed, desperate panic. "Caleb, look at me. Look at me. I didn't fall for a smell. I fell for you. Freshman year, long before I ever knew what your body did." My breath hitched. The solid wall of ice around my heart developed a tiny, microscopic crack. "What?" "Freshman year," Jax repeated, his forehead dropping heavily against mine. Our noses brushed. He was breathing so fast, inhaling my scentless air as if it was killing him. "You were sitting under the oak tree behind the library. You had ink smeared on your cheek, and you were laughing at something Jerry said. I saw you, and it was like the air got sucked out of my lungs. I wanted you then. I wanted you every single day since." But the dreams, I whispered, my voice finally breaking. The numbness was faltering, a painful stinging heat threatening to return. "You told the doctor the scent gave you those intense dreams." Jax let out a harsh, wet laugh, closing his eyes. A single tear escaped, cutting a hot path down his tan cheek to drop onto my jaw. "I lied to him," Jax whispered hoarsely. "I couldn't tell my therapist the truth. Caleb the vanilla didn't cause those dreams." He pulled back just enough to look directly into my eyes, stripping away his final layer of pride, exposing the absolute unhinged depth of his obsession. "I pulled you into those dreams," Jax confessed, his thumbs frantically stroking my cheekbones. "I knew what you could do. I noticed you touching people and falling asleep, so I tested it. I left my arm out. I waited for you to touch me. And when you did, I forced myself to think about you. I obsessed over you every waking second so that when you fell into my head, you would see exactly what I wanted to do to you. I wanted to trap you there. I wanted you to see how completely consumed I was." The world stopped spinning. The air in the dorm room suddenly vanished. He hadn't been triggered by my body. My body had been reacting to his deliberate, calculated obsession. He was the architect of the nightmare. He had laid the trap, knowing exactly how to catch me. Then why the therapist? I choked out tears suddenly welling in my own eyes. Because I was terrified. Jax gasped, his hand sliding down to grip my shoulders tight. "I was stealing your dirty clothes, Caleb. I was breathing in your scent while you slept. When that senior touched you at the party, I genuinely wanted to kill him. I wanted to lock you in this room and never let anyone else look at you. I called Evans because my love for you is so dark, so heavy. I was terrified it was going to destroy you. The ice in my veins didn't just melt, it violently exploded. He wasn't disgusted by me. He wasn't a victim of my biology. He was a man drowning in his own possessive love, terrified that his darkness would scare me away. I didn't think. I just reacted. I reached up, grabbing handfuls of his thick, dark hair, and pulled his face down to mine. Our lips crashed together. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a violent collision of teeth breath and raw, undeniable desperation. Jax let out a muffled, guttural groan against my mouth. His massive arms instantly banded around my waist, lifting me completely off the floor, crushing my chest flush against his. And then it happened. The void inside me vanished. A tidal wave of pure, unadulterated vanilla violently burst from my pores. It didn't just fill the room, it suffocated it. It was richer, heavier, and sweeter than it had ever been, a physical manifestation of my heart completely surrendering to him. Jax tore his mouth away, burying his face directly into the crook of my neck. He took a ragged, starving breath, taking in the suffocating wave of vanilla. His massive body shuddered violently against mine as the scent hit his brain. The tension drained out of his muscles, replaced by a dark, triumphant heat. He kissed the sensitive skin over my pulse point, his teeth lightly scraping my collarbone. Mine, Jax growled against my skin, his voice vibrating with absolute possession. The icy mint of his body wash aggressively mixed with my thick vanilla tangling together until there was no telling where he ended and I began. I wrapped my legs around his waist, clinging to his broad shoulders, tears of overwhelming relief soaking into the collar of his shirt. I pressed my lips right against his ear. "Jax," I whispered, my voice trembling but certain. "You don't need to steal my t-shirts anymore, and you don't need to trap me in your dreams." Winter on the East Coast was usually a brutal, suffocating blanket of gray ice. But this morning, the soft, rhythmic tapping of snow gently hitting the dorm window felt completely different. It wasn't a cage anymore. It was a cocoon. I stretched my legs slowly, my bare toes tangling in the thick, heavy fleece blankets. The bed was incredibly warm. I was drowning in an oversized, faded black hoodie, the fabric heavy worn and bearing the number 12 across the back. Jax's varsity basketball hoodie. I buried my nose into the collar, inhaling deeply. It didn't just smell like his icy, sharp mint body wash anymore. Woven deep into the cotton was the permanent, lingering scent of my own vanilla. It smelled like us. Jax wasn't in the bed. I heard the gentle hiss of the ancient radiator and the low, bubbling gurgle of the coffee maker from his desk. I rolled over the mattress, letting out a familiar, soft creak. He was standing there in gray sweatpants, completely shirtless, his broad, scarred back flexing beautifully as he poured 2 mugs of dark roast. He heard the springs creak and turned his dark, predatory eyes, instantly locking onto mine. The arrogant, untouchable king of the campus was gone. The look he gave me now was something so raw, so entirely unguarded, it still made my heart stutter. He didn't say a word. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, holding a steaming mug in one hand. He sat on the edge of the mattress, his heavy weight dipping the bed toward him. "Morning," I mumbled, my voice rough with sleep, taking the mug. "You smell sweet today," Jax murmured, his voice a low, gravelly rumble. He didn't hesitate. He leaned down, pushing the oversized hood out of his way, and buried his face directly into the crook of my neck. He took a long, deliberate breath against my skin, his chest expanding flush against my shoulder. Peach Jax observed a slow, triumphant smirk curving against my collarbone. He pressed a gentle kiss to my pulse point. "You're happy." "I'm warm," I corrected, a smile breaking across my face despite my best efforts. The heavy, suffocating fear was gone. The Arctic Force body spray had been unceremoniously thrown into the campus dumpster 3 months ago. The bitter, acidic scent of lemon was a rare occurrence, now replaced almost entirely by the soft, sweet peach of contentment or the heavy, intoxicating vanilla of his touch. I didn't hide my biology anymore. I didn't need to. Later that afternoon, the campus coffee shop was a chaotic symphony of noise. A loud hiss from the espresso machine, the clattering of ceramic plates, and the buzzing chatter of stressed college students. I sat in a corner booth attempting to highlight a biology textbook, while Jerry sat across from us aggressively complaining about his latest failed Tinder date. Jax sat beside me. He wasn't paying attention to Jerry. His massive arm was draped casually over the back of the booth, completely caging me in. His long fingers were absent-mindedly playing with the short hairs at the nape of my neck, sending continuous, tiny electric shocks down my spine. I'm telling you, the guy lied about his height. Jerry groaned, tossing his hands up. He paused, his eyes narrowing as he looked at us. He let out a loud, dramatic sigh. Can you two not for 5 minutes? It's like you're magnetically attached. It's sickening. I blushed instantly, ducking my head and staring hard at the neon yellow highlighter in my hand. The embarrassment flared hot in my chest. Instinctively, the faint peach scent radiating from my skin mutated. The bright edges softened, warming up into that rich, heavy, undeniable wave of vanilla. Before I could even attempt to shrink into my hoodie, Jax shifted. Right in the middle of the crowded shop in broad daylight, he leaned in. He didn't care about Jerry. He didn't care about the girls from his fan club whispering 2 tables over. He pressed his nose directly to the side of my neck, breathing me in deeply, his dark eyes sliding shut in pure reverence. Jax, people are looking, I whispered, though my voice trembled with a treacherous heat, and I made absolutely no effort to push him away. Let them look, Jax growled softly, his voice meant only for me. He lightly scraped his teeth against my jawline, sending a violent shiver through my core. Let everyone know exactly who you belong to. I closed my eyes, entirely surrendering to the heavy warmth spreading through my veins. The vanilla only grew stronger, sweeter, proudly announcing my absolute defeat to the entire room. It wasn't just the waking world that had shifted. The nights were no longer a battleground of terrifying nightmares and stolen secrets. When the lights went out in our dorm room, I didn't stay on my side of the room. I didn't curl into a ball, terrified of making contact. Instead, I lay in the dark, waiting for the heavy thumping of his footsteps. When he pulled me into his chest, wrapping his massive arms around me to shield me from the winter chill, I didn't pull my hands away. I intentionally reached out, lacing my fingers tight with his bare skin. As we drifted off, we crossed the boundary together. The dark, feral locker rooms were gone. The desperate, violent obsessions had faded into something infinitely deeper. Now the dreamscapes were just empty, quiet fields, or sunlit beaches, or our tiny dorm room places where we could exist entirely alone, communicating without words, building a world that belonged only to us. We didn't need to steal dreams anymore. I used to be a thief tiptoeing through the sleeping minds of strangers, terrified of being caught. I spent my life hiding my scents, locking my heart away behind walls of bitter lemon and cheap cologne. But as I lay there breathing in the icy mint of his skin, completely wrapped in his heavy protective obsession, I knew the truth. I had willingly let the ultimate predator catch me. And in the end, he didn't just steal my vanilla. He had stolen my nightmares, my fears, and every single one of my dreams, turning them all into a beautiful, inescapable reality.